Hey, everybody, welcome to the Book Leads Impactful Books for Life and Leadership. I'm your series host and leadership performance coach, John Germillo. In this podcast series, I want to get to the books that have impacted the lives of people in my network, friends, colleagues, new and old. I want to get to those great leads that can introduce me to books that have made a difference in their life, their work, their business, whatever it may be, whatever's contributed the most to what they do. And in the series, I cover three categories of books. So it's three kinds of conversations. The first, in which they're explaining or sharing a book to me that I haven't read. The second category, in which we're covering a book that we've both read, whether specifically for the series or that we read in our previous lives before the series. The third category is when I have the author and or publisher on to talk about the book, the messaging, what they want to get out there for the audience, this audience. And in this particular case, I'm lucky enough to have another author. And today my guest is Chaya Topas. And Chaya is a mom of three who takes the approach that it's better to laugh than to cry. Her attitude towards raising kids is to not take yourself too seriously and to give kids an opportunity to figure the things out. Chaya began writing as a way to express how she felt about raising great kids in these volatile times. And in doing so, she finally found her passion. Chaya wrote a children's book about a running joke between her husband and herself that one day when their children were grown up, they would do all the crazy things their kids used to do in their own homes. It was a joke that has eased the tension of trying to get their kids to listen to them without getting angry and frustrated. And it is every parent's revenge fantasy come to life. Truth. Chaya has been featured on local television and websites, social media feeds, and has done readings in schools. Raising children is a crapshoot. You don't know what you're going to get, and you never know if your reactions and decisions will cause years of therapy or the most well-adjusted kids on the planet. Chaya loves exploring and analyzing that idea. I'll provide links to where you can find Chaya's TV episodes, appearances, and books. And Chaya had reached out when she found out about the series, what I was doing, that it was another platform for her to share her book, her ideas, her background. And we went back and forth, learned about each other, as I always do with authors that reach out to me. And I found it especially interesting that this is what she's covering. This is what she's writing about. I'm a parent myself to three kids, 8, 5, and 2. So I get that idea of trying to do the best you can without a manual out there. Everybody's going to think that they know the right way to do it, that there's scientific research for this and that. In my mind, it's almost like if you do the best you can with a big heart, that's the best that you can do. So, Chaya, I'm interested, very interested to have this conversation with you to see what it was, the specifics of what got you to write this book. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, John.
And first, before we begin, I want to get to who you are today, what you're up to today, your work, just to get an idea of who it is that's sharing this book with us.
Okay. I don't even know where to start. We could go really far back.
Well, I mean, first, the work that you're doing today, and then we can dive into your past to see what led up to today. But first, the work that you're doing today.
Okay. So the work that I'm doing today is I did write and self-publish 2 children's books. And my first one is really the one that I've done the most amount of promotion for and that I have read all over the county and that has really garnered the most amount of interest from people who have bought it and read it, and has been enormously popular because I think it appeals to parents even more than it appeals to kids. I think every parent has a situation where their kid falls in love with a book and they insist that you read that book over and over again. And if you've had that experience, if you don't like that book, that is really a struggle. But if you love that book, it makes it like easy and fun. And what I found from parents who have bought this book, they're like, this is the book. This is the one that I don't mind reading over and over again because the message is so great for parents and for kids.
And what's the reaction of kids that read the book or get the book read to them? Do they laugh because of just the idea of parents doing that to their kids when they're older?
Yeah, kids find it so funny. I read it in a school once, and the entire room of, I don't know, 40 or 50 kids was just cracking up. They totally got it. Like, they get the message and they know it's about them, but they still think it's funny because the illustrations are showing their parents as grandparents doing all these super childish things. And that for kids is just very funny.
So the book does have, say, for instance, me as a grandparent. So meaning my kids in the book, there'll be 3 generations in the book.
So the way the book is set up, it's right here. So you see there's two little grandparents and they're running to the house. And the house they're running to is their kids' house when their kids are grown up. So the premise of the book is the kids have all grown up and they've moved into homes of their own. And they probably have, maybe families of their own even. It doesn't specify whether or not they have families, but it's the idea that the kids are grown up now. They're the adults and their grown parents who are now older, and possibly even grandparents at this point are coming to visit them, and they're going to wreak the same havoc in their adult children's home that their kids used to wreck in their own home when they were little. So an example that I'll give is that something that my kids do that drives me totally bananas is they don't eat over their plates while they're
Mm.
eating. So all the food that comes out of their mouths just drops onto the floor and onto the tablecloth and onto their laps. And I always say, why don't you just eat over your plate? If you just eat over your plate, this wouldn't happen. And so then I'll say, you know what? One day when you are all grown up, I'm going to visit you in your house and I'm going to eat just anywhere I want with the food just coming out of my mouth, and wherever it falls, it falls. So it's that idea, and the kids get it. They do. They know they do these things. It's not that they're unaware. They just don't care to stop.
Yeah, it's interesting going through the ages, like when you talked about the kids wanting that same book read over and over again. My 2-year-old does that all the time with the same book. She goes, gets it, comes over. As soon as you're done, she wants it read again. It's not a longer book, it's shorter, but it's funny that even at that age, she gravitates towards something specific. And then the behaviors they're talking about, where it's like you have this big plate in front of you and stuff is still ending up on the table, on the floor, on the chair, on your lap. Before school, there may be yogurt now in your lap, or they all of a sudden, like as soon as they eat something, their impulse is just to drag their mouth across their sleeve, like
Yeah.
little things like that. But yeah, and just leaving their toys everywhere. So it's interesting because everybody can relate to that kind of scenario, whether they
Yes.
know it or not. And the thing is, with the proliferation, excuse me, of social media, you're seeing all these memes of like the way that kids act, what they ask for. So this era, this age that we're in, you can see that parents go through so many of the same kind of behaviors from their kids, the same kind of attitudes, the sayings, everything. It's just embedded and encoded in them to act certain ways.
Absolutely.
So, Haya,
Absolutely.
when it comes to you,
Hmm.
because I'm curious about, the person who lives these experiences and then writes about them and is concerned about volatile times. Can you tell me a little bit about your background, starting with when you kind of first stepped into whatever your career was going to move into, meaning when you were maybe choosing college or going into the workforce, what was it like from then to now, just to kind of get an idea of who you are and the values that you carry?
Okay, great question. So I went to FIT in New York City and I got a degree in product development, which is a very niche market having to do with manufacturing and marketing. And I graduated in 2007. And I think this will be meaningful to any of your listeners who graduated around the same time as me. But as many of you know, that 2008 was that huge crash. So I graduate from college. I get a job in product development, actually from one of the very first Amazon distributors. So I'm really like, I've been involved in every step of like a lot of different kind of production processes and distribution. So I get a job at one of these first Amazon distribution centers before they're owned by Amazon. And I'm doing product development for them. And then 2008 comes along, and our biggest buyer, and some of you may remember Linens and Things went under. And guess who lost their job? Me. So I've only been working for a year out of college. I lose my job. I kind of have to regroup and figure out what I'm going to do. I end up moving back to Baltimore, where I'm from originally, and I get a job in branding and marketing, which has a lot of overlap with what I did in college as far as, that type of work. And I did that for a while. I ended up getting married during this time and started working in different fields away from branding and marketing. And I had my kids, and having kids, as you know, is very life-changing. It just changes your perspectives on absolutely everything. Before I had kids, I used to think to myself, I'm so busy. I'm very, very busy. And then I had kids and I was like, what was I talking about? I was never busy. What was I even doing with all of my time? It doesn't even make sense because now I'm busy. Like it changes everything. And I was really busy with my kids, and having kids made me understand how important raising this next generation is. These are going to be decision makers at some point in the future. And if we don't raise them to be very good people, they're going to be bad decision makers, and they're going to make decisions about our future one day. And so it was very crystal clear to me that I needed to raise kids who were going to be smart and caring and kind. And really all of my efforts went into that. So now fast forward 10 years down the line, I've only been working very, very part-time. I ended up getting a job in the nonprofit world, and I was working doing communications, and I was very unsatisfied. And I felt like something was missing. And I'm turning at the time 40 years old, which is like a big transitionary time. And I'm thinking, what is my passion? And I thought, maybe I don't have a passion. Is that a thing? People don't have a passion. They don't know what brings them joy. And I thought, yeah, I guess so, because I'm one of those people. I don't know what my passion is. And I gave it a lot of thought and I prayed on it. I was like, God, hey, what am I doing here? Obviously, I'm very happy raising kids. That's a big part of my life, but there's something missing. What is it that I could be doing that would bring me joy and that would be good for the rest of the world? And at the same time, my husband had been joking with me. He's like, because of the running joke that we had about visiting our kids one day and doing all these things in their house, he said, you should write a book about that. That would be so funny. And I was like, oh, haha, yeah, it'd be very funny. And he kept saying, no, you really should. You should write a book about it. And at that time, I realized, you know what? I could write a book about it. It turns out I have all the skills from all the various jobs that I had to write a book, because I knew how to use graphic design programs, and I knew how to write, and I knew how to edit. And so I did. I wrote the book. I did pitch it to a lot of literary agents. It didn't get picked up. And I thought, you know what? I also know how to self-publish. I'm going to self-publish my book. And I did. And it was very successful. And I felt really great about it. And that's when it all kind of came together and coalesced. And I was like, oh, I love to write, and I love to write books for kids that are instructive, that they're not just like fun and they're not just educational, they're fun and educational. And that was something that was very meaningful to me. And I'd kind of like stumbled into my passion. And then, I pursued that for a year. I said, I'm going to give myself a year to really only focus on writing my books and getting them out there. And that's what I did. So I self-published 2 of my books. I actually have another 4 that I am pitching to literary agents, trying to get somebody to pick them up. And if not, you know what? I am very comfortable going the self-publishing route again.
All right. I have some follow-up questions. First, and the only reason I was looking away was just because I was writing like different points that you were making, just kind of, I didn't want to forget anything. First of all, can you just go through the titles that you want to share of the other books that you have? First of all, the title of this book, I don't think we mentioned it yet. So the title of the book that we're covering today specifically, and then if you could, the titles of the other books.
Absolutely. So the title of the book we're discussing today is called When We Visit You. It's available on Amazon. It's available at Barnes & Noble. It's great. I have to say, I recommend it for the ages, 3 to 8. I think those are really the target ages for this book. It is very funny. It's very cute, has inclusive kind of illustrations. I have had incredibly positive feedback about this book. Parents and kids alike both love it. The second book that I wrote and self-published is called Go Away Bad Dreams. This book is based on this idea that I formulated for my kids. And that is sometimes you struggle to put your kids to bed and it'll take an hour. And something that I noticed about that struggle is they don't want to go to bed sometimes because they have this fear that if they fall asleep, they could have a bad dream. And that fear is keeping them up and making them prolong bedtime. And I came up with this method to help my own children. And the method is in the book. And it's a method that parents can use for their kids if they're experiencing this. And then as I put my hands on the top of my kids' heads and I say, go away bad dreams, go away bad dreams, go away bad dreams. And then I give them ideas right before they go to bed about good dreams they can have. So you're going to dream about rainbows. You're going to dream about unicorns. You're going to dream that the whole world is made out of marshmallows. You know what I'm saying? Like,
oh, yeah.
Right before they go to bed, give them those little thought nuggets of good dreams they can have. And that power of suggestion has proven, at least with my own children and with the people who have bought my book, to be very effective. And even now, and I have a 13-year-old, I have an 11-year-old, and I have a 7-year-old. Sometimes even my 11-year-old will come to me after I've put her to bed and she'll say, I had a bad dream. Can you do it again? And they totally believe in the power of this go away bad dreams. So the book is just a bunch of suggestions that you can read to your kids right before they go to bed about good things to dream about. And it's like very sweet and very gentle. This is a book really for toddlers. I would say, 2, 3, and 4-year-olds. It's been very effective. The other books I have written are not published, and so I'm not going to share them right now. But if I don't find a publisher, I will be rolling them out within the next year or so.
Okay. And I'm just curious, why FIT? And I ask only because I'm always curious with my guests what it was from their childhood, their adolescence, whether it was family, environment, whatever it may be. What was it that influenced them to take that first step? So for you, where did that desire to go to FIT, where did that come from?
That's so interesting that you asked that.
Well, I mean, because all of this rolls up to the book you've written in some capacity. This gets, for me anyway, I'm fascinated by who someone is today and who they were that young, especially the first couple steps into their own identity, their own career. That's the only reason I ask.
Okay. I think I ended up at FIT because I really didn't know what I wanted to study. I was kind of, I just didn't know what I wanted to do. Pretty early on, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I kind of bounced around to several different colleges before I ended up at FIT. And my story was that I didn't have direction and I don't know if I hadn't myself personally given enough thought to what I wanted to do as an adult, or if I was really just prolonging being a child. But I bounced around to several different undergrad programs before I wound up at FIT. And I went to FIT on a recommendation from a friend who said, why don't you try FIT? I think you'll be happier there because you'll have an outlet for some creativity. And what people don't, I think, really know about FIT is that they have 2 schools. So they have one school that's their fashion school. Okay, so everybody knows about their fashion school. It's very famous. It's very prolific. And then attached to their fashion school, they have a business school. And the business school is supposed to support the fashion school in the sense that when we all graduate, the people who graduate with the business degrees, which I have, will support the people who graduated with fashion degrees and help them promote their careers. So they kind of both work hand in hand. So I was in the business school, but I got to have more of an outlet for my creativity. And I found that the classes there really resonated with me. The teachers were excellent. They were really well experienced. And FIT has, I don't know how to say this, but what they do is they hire people from industry a lot of the time. So they're not really looking for who has a degree in business. They're looking for somebody who has a lot of experience in business to teach it. And I found that that was a really effective approach to learning. These are people who have been there, they've done it, they can give you very concrete, practical advice. And that spoke to me because I'm a very rational, practical person. And so I like that approach.
So I can take a guess at this, but does it make sense for you based on who you were at that young age that this is what you would be doing, writing these books? Can you reconcile that to your childhood, looking back?
Oh man.
In whatever way. I mean, there doesn't need to be a perfect answer. I know it's maybe unorthodox question. So whatever comes to mind, if anything does.
I have to say no, because I didn't want to have kids. Growing
Mm,
up, I didn't want to have kids. I didn't think it would really be a part of my future. I came from a very big family and I have a lot of siblings, and I took care of them for a lot of my childhood. And I thought, been there, done that. And so I didn't see a future with children. And because I didn't see a future with children, I can't imagine that at any point I thought, well, one day I would write books for children.
makes sense. Thank you for that. Hi, what does leadership mean to you? I always ask all my guests as a leadership performance coach. I want to get their take on what leadership means, what it looks like, great leadership. What's your take on that?
My take on great leadership is leading by example. Nothing, nothing about a great leader is really about what they say. It really is about what they do. And so I think leadership to me means being the person that you want to be as an example to others.
Thank you. And then I just want to comment on I love the fact, the idea that you want to raise kids that are kind, that are great humans. Um, it sounds simple. It sounds like an easy answer, but I think it's one of those that it's needed now more than ever. The way that things are going, it's like, I don't need you to be a doctor. I don't need you to be this. I don't need you to be that. Those are all great. Those are all bonuses. But first and foremost, I want to put you out into the world prepared with the tools to be kind, to be a great citizen, to be a community contributor, to have great values. Can you speak to that? Because I mean, in reading your bio, obviously you had mentioned the volatility in society today. So what are your thoughts on that, especially kids at the ages that you have? I believe you said 13, 11, and 7. Can you just provide some thoughts on that? Just because I think that's a big driver in who we are as parents and who we are as an author, a coach, whatever it may be.
It's exactly what you said. It really is exactly what you said. And I'll repeat something that my brother in law told me. I was going back and forth about what schools to send my kids to. Should I send them to this school? It has, these extracurriculars, or that school. It has, this wonderful program. And my brother in law, who's a therapist, said to me, it doesn't matter where you send your kids to school. He said, what matters is not traumatizing them during their childhood. He said, and raising them to be good people, because then they'll be successful no matter what. Where you send them to school is not necessarily going to be the thing that sets them up for success. What
Mhm.
sets them up for success is having this very healthy childhood with good boundaries and good principles and good values. And then they can use all of those things that are internal to them to be successful. You need to be you need to have all of that inside you. You have to have that very solid foundation inside of you to go out into the world and accomplish anything. So that's really how I feel about raising my kids in this environment where, people hide behind their computers and say whatever they want about whatever situation with this idea that they're anonymous. Is that who you want to be? Is that who you're projecting to the world, that you're a troll? That's not who I want them to be. I want them to be citizens who care about each other, who care about humanity, who care about the earth, and who want to do good. Like, if I can just give them that foundation, be good people, I don't have to worry about all this exterior things because they will be good inside of themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think as long as you instill those values in them, obviously hard work goes in there as well. I mean, what other tools would they really need aside from those basics? To me, if you instill them with those, it's like the world really is their oyster. It's not going to be perfect. You're going to have obstacles. You're going to see challenges. But I think as you are, if you operate from that foundation, it's along the right path. There's no one singular path, but it's in the right direction. So I applaud that thinking. Absolutely. Haya, for you, I'm curious, in writing a book like this, is there anything that changed or evolved in you in the process of writing this and putting this out there? Did any of your thinking change as you wrote the book and put it out there?
That's an excellent question. I think it changed my perspective of myself as far as who I was in the world. I think that definitely changed. I think I saw myself in broader terms. And I saw myself more as being able to contribute something that I had with everybody else that I knew, where I think before that, I think it was more insular. I thought, I'm just this very tiny person on this earth that doesn't affect anyone around me. And writing the book and getting all the positive feedback made me understand that I did have something more to offer to, the community around me than I had initially assumed.
Can you speak to your not newfound passion, but you said for the longest time you were concerned that you didn't have one, or you were praying to kind of get some idea of what it may be that you were put on this earth for. In the bio, you share that you have found that kind of calling. Can you speak to that a little? Do you feel really ingrained in this now as your passion, your purpose?
Yeah, I do. I really feel like this is what I found. And it's not just the writing. Obviously, the writing is great and the books are great, but it's speaking to people about these ideas and putting the ideas of good parenting out there and putting the ideas of raising kids with values out there that has become really important to me.
And can you speak to the parents out there, aside from a funny book, what do you hope they can take away? Again, your bio, what you shared, just learning about yourself in parenting was taking things less serious.
Yeah.
What do you hope for parents out there that read these books with their kids, or especially this particular book?
So this is what I like to say about this book and what it means to parents. And that's this: when your kids are doing these things that you have asked them not to do countless times, it can be infuriating. And a lot of times my instinct is to yell at them. Like, God damn it, cut it out. I have told you a dozen times not to wipe your hands on the walls. Why would you wipe your hand on a wall? Doesn't make any sense. Don't do it. And you want to get to that place. You are infuriated. If you can just take one breath to laugh instead of yell, you change the entire dynamic in the house.
Yeah.
You change you inside, because now you're not angry, you're laughing, you're not angry anymore, and you're not bearing all of this resentment towards your kid. And your kid's not going to feel that anger towards them, and they're going to be able to laugh and understand in a very gentle way that what they're doing is wrong or inappropriate. And that's such a better way to teach. And it is not easy. I am not saying it's easy, and I am not saying that I have nailed this, because I haven't, but I try.
Yeah.
I really try to see the humor in the situation and not get angry. And it makes a big difference in the entire household when you are not yelling at your kids.
I think that's the important thing is, like an author or a coach, it's not that we have it nailed, it's not that we have it perfect, but we're curious as hell to try to be the best version of ourselves. And that doesn't mean you nail it every time. But it's funny what you mentioned about turning it into a sense of humor. My thing is, if it can be cleaned up, if it can be fixed, yes, they should know better. Yes, I'll try to remind them of the way that they should have approached things. Whereas, my parents' generation, there was going to be yelling all the time. There wasn't this emotional intelligence of, wait a minute, I may be traumatizing this child. There was none of that when I was growing up. Doesn't mean that has to be the similar case here. Like other people on here have referred to it as just breaking those chains, the chains. It may not be extreme trauma, but it is a disruption. So you can approach it a little differently. I mean, I've gotten to that point with my kids where it's kind of like if I see a mess, if they do stuff over and over again, like just to make them laugh, I just collapse on the floor, face down. And they're like, "Oh my God, Daddy, what's wrong?" And I'm just, I'm mumbling from the floor, like, I just don't understand why you guys. But again, I don't get it perfect whatsoever. But there really is something to just, for me, if it can be cleaned up, if it can be fixed, it is what it is. I'll try to steer them back in that right direction. But, the same way we deal in emotional intelligence with other adults, other professionals, we know like that anger, raising your voice to a certain level, whatever it may be, that adverse reaction, it doesn't get you anything. The adrenaline feels good for a split second, but the result is what we have to think about.
Right.
We're works in progress.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to nail it.
Yeah.
Haya, what book has inspired you or made an impact on you? I asked that of my authors. Obviously, we're covering your book,
Hmm.
but which one has inspired you in your life, in your values? Which one may stand out the most?
Ooh, it's a big question because I'm a voracious reader and I've read a lot of books and I've loved a lot of books. I mean, there are certain parenting books I would say that I could recommend. One of them is How to Hug a Porcupine.
Hmm.
And that really set me on a better path to handling my preteen. And I recommend it for all parents of preteens to read How to Hug a Porcupine because they get into this super difficult stage and it is very hard to navigate. And this book gave me so many great pointers and I really loved it. The rest of the books I've read, I can't say they inspired my parenting. They
Or
were
just
just,
inspired you in general?
I like Jhumpa Lahiri's books. I love John Irving. I've loved all of his books. Who else? Rick Bragg. Have you read Rick Bragg's books?
No,
Um,
I mean, and for what reason, Haya? What is it that stands
so
out?
what stands out is the storytelling. I love a good story. And I think what the inspiration that I would draw from any one of those books and the excellent storytelling is that it was so important to me that my kids be readers. So I have been reading to them since they've been born. And every night I read to my kids. And I think the books that I've read have inspired me to want my kids to be readers. And it's worked. I read to them, they read on their own, they love to read. We have tons of books in the house. And I mean, obviously, reading develops their brains
Hmm.
and gives them broader
Mhm.
views on the entire world.
Beautiful. Thank you. And in wrapping up, Haya, is there anything that you want to share about what you're up to these days? Anything that I might have missed or should have asked? Anything at all you want to share with this audience?
I would only want to share that you should buy my books. They're amazing. Your kids will love them. You will love them. And to look out for me because I'm going to have more books coming out. And I think I have an important message, and I'm always ready and willing to talk about raising children and childhood development. I find it just interesting and fun to talk about. I think that's probably it.
Perfect. Thank you, Haya, so much for sitting down with me.
Thank you, John. It's been a pleasure.
And again, Haya's book is When We Visit You. And if there's anything that I might have missed, anything that I should have asked her, anything that stands out to you, please reach out to me. I'll reach out to her, see what kind of additional insight, wisdom, guidance I can get, any kind of responses that she can share from anything that I might pose. In the meantime, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.